You ready?
I'm ready. Hey everybody, Kenny Hubbard, Razor's Edge Productions, here with Aaron Poe today. This episode is brought to you by Foxy's Race Car Bodies and Parts. Foxy's in Nevada. His phone number is 417-684-0901. Get with Foxy about any parts or anything you need. He's got about everything a guy could ask for down there. If not, he can get it in there. So, Aaron's been racing quite some time. Aaron started in a kart in '99, and I don't know if you keep up with racing, but Aaron's been your Powri Superstock National Champion 3 years straight. That's a feat.
Yes, it is. It's a lot of hard work went into those 3 years. Got a lot of good talent in our class right now, and it's just continuing to grow. Had a lot of good battles with close friends, Teddy Welshmeyer, Michael Muskrat, my brother-in-law Mark Carter, John Brooks. There's just so many good drivers in this class right now. So being able to pull off 3 national championships in a row against those guys it's a tough feat.
There's some great drivers, great cars in that class. So let's go back to '99. You started driving a kart.
Mm-hmm.
And how old was you then?
Probably 13, 14-ish.
So you're driving a kart. Dad's taking care of you, I guess.
Oh yeah, yep.
And did your dad race?
So no, I am a first generation driver. My dad was always around cars, around racing. He actually grew up in Iowa, kind of southeastern Iowa. Got to watch guys like Ernie Durr and Ramo Stott, a lot of legends in racing. So he was always around it. And then probably about 7, 8 years old, he asked me if I wanted to go to my first race at State Fair Motor Speedway in Sedalia. And I said, of course, sounds like a fun time. And after I got that first whiff of racing alcohol, it was said and done. I was hooked.
Well, that's a heck of a place for a memory at Sedalia. Was they on the mile?
No, they were they still had the mile open, but they were on the half mile. That's what they ran weekly. And my dad got to know a gentleman by the name of Bob Larson. He's kind of my mentor. He's the one that he was my favorite driver growing up, and we got to go down in the pits and help him and learn, and that's really who got me into racing.
So spent a couple of years in a kart on asphalt or dirt?
Dirt. So first year racing, I wouldn't have ever imagined my first ever trip in a race car was during the winter on an indoor track. It was in Sedalia. They had what they called the Coliseum, the horse building. Horse show building, and they would actually go in and cut out about 200 loads of dirt out of this building, and it was as steep a banking as you could stand on, and it was just a circle, just a ring, and that's where I got my first experience go-kart racing. Did all right the first year. The second year is where we really started to come into our own, got several feature wins, ended up winning a track championship at the Coliseum, and then jumped into the big cars from there.
What was so had your eyes set on big cars, obviously, when you got in a kart to begin with, right?
Oh yeah. That was no question that's where I wanted to be, was a big car of some sorts. I had a lot of guys I was fans of and watched. Bob was in the modifieds, John Brooks, and I didn't know at the time, but my soon-to-be brother-in-law Mark Carter was in the street stocks too, and then Jason Bodenhammer in late models. I'm trying to think. Randy Martin in sprint cars. We had a lot of big guys that ran Sedalia.
Some big names. I mean, you're getting your inspiration from some pretty cowboy up drivers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, them guys got around the track.
Oh yeah. Lots of laps, lots of experience growing up watching those guys. And it just so happened, Bob lived in the same town we did here in Warrensburg, and so we really got to follow him and learned a lot. And then the year we got into the big cars, we actually bought his old modified. Back then there weren't B mods or Midwest mods, it was literally just modifieds. And we were running, it was a leaf spring car. So we ran a couple years in a leaf spring car, and that's when we, after that, we jumped into Dirtworks car. Gary Clark, and started running 4-bar cars. So yeah, it's modifieds was kind of where I wanted to be, but we were just kind of let it evolve into whatever we wanted to. You know, whether or not we jumped into a late model or maybe jumped to a sprint car or something. But didn't really have a super strict goal in mind, but we just knew we wanted to be on them big tracks running with those guys.
Right. So how long did you run the modified?
So we ran the modified from about 2000 till 2012. I ran A-mods, several different manufacturers. We ran all around Missouri, down in Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma. And 2012, took kind of a 4-year hiatus from racing, kind of got out, kind of reevaluated, and took a few years out. So modifieds were 12 years, and then once we got back in 2016, I think, is when we got back into Cowboys late model. We were running for Harriet Chancellor. Cowboy passed several years before that. His late model was just sitting there, and she wanted to see it on the track, and we were lucky enough to get contacted through my brother-in-law to run that late model. So that was a dream come true to begin with, to be able to get to run a late model. So
right, and that's something that that's quite a change to taking a from modified to taking a break to jumping into a late model. That's a lot to learn.
Oh yeah, there was definitely a learning curve. You running A-mods on an 8-inch, pretty hard tire, and then going to a late model, 12-inch tire that's fairly soft, all things considered, and then a lot more horsepower, a lot more grip. It was definitely a learning curve that first year, but I felt like we held our own. We were, it was 2016, and we were running a 2003 Warrior chassis, so we were a little outgunned, a little behind the 8-ball on some technology. But I think we ended up finishing like 4th or 5th in points that year, behind some really good drivers. And then the next year we updated. We ended up getting a new Pierce car and ran that one for 2 years, still under Harriet and Cowboy's number 45. That's where the 45 number comes from. That was Cowboy's old number. So we're going to continue to run that as long as Harriet allows us.
And that's why you chose that number.
Yes. Yeah. So he's going to ride with us for as long as Harriet will let us.
That's pretty awesome.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome. So didn't find a lot of success in the late model, I guess.
A little, not the sustained success that we've seen in the super stocks. We won a handful of features at Lucas, which in and of itself is a feat. With you race that guys against Johnny Fenawall, John
Ferris,
Larry Ferris, all those guys. We also had guys like Will Vaught would come in and guest run with us in someone's car. So we were running against some tough guys. So getting a win in that ULMA class was still a feat of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got out of the late model and decided to go to the street stock. Why? What drove that decision?
Well, we were working out of the same shop with my brother-in-law when we had our late model, and we did all right with it. We loved it. We not really complain about it, other than the cost. Of course, all racers complain about cost, but that's neither here nor there.
If it was cheap, everybody did.
Exactly. Yep. But we got to a point with motors and shocks and tires that we were just spending so much money, and the fact that we had bought our own new car, it got to a point where we were like, all right, we're going to have to reevaluate and see what we want to do, see if we want to continue trying to do this late model, and if so, we're going to have to really ramp up our sponsorship program to help us. And we had great sponsors at the time. It was just getting to the point where my brother-in-law said, hey, I've got this second backup car sitting here that he had run a few years past. Why don't you just take it out one night while you've got the late model and see what you think? Drive it, try it, see if you like it. And I think we took it down to Lucas or Warrensburg one night. First night out in it, running both cars. First night out in that super stock, we ended up winning. I just thought to myself, man, this might be the thing we want to do from now on. So the rest of that year,
good, huh?
Oh yeah. The rest of that year, we kind of hit and miss. Whenever we'd be at a track where they were also running super stocks, we'd trailer it down there too, and we'd run a few shows. We ended up running the Big Buck that year, and I think that's what really cemented it in my mind. You know, that's where we wanted to be, was that big buck show. I mean, you hear all the super stock guys talk about that race. You know, it's just it's the race for our class. You know?
Yeah, for super stocks, that's like the race
Yeah.
in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I mean, and they brought it back this year.
Yep.
So that's exciting because a couple years off of it, and you guys not all getting together down there, that was a hole that didn't get filled.
Yep.
And now they're bringing that back, and thank you guys for bringing that back. That had to do with that. That's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
These guys appreciate that. I ain't talked to one of them who ain't excited about this race being back.
Yep.
Back down there a week.
Yeah. There is maybe still a little animosity with some drivers, you know, with what happened with our class and Lucas Oil, but you know that was 4 years ago. That's in the past. You know, we've all moved on from there. I feel like our class is in a much better, much more stable position, having a sanctioning body, you know, running this rules and not even running them. They're actually leaning back on the drivers, getting our input for rules, and not just forcing stuff down our throats like some other sanctions do. You know, they're actually working with the drivers, seeing what we want and taking that and implementing it. And then, you know, the fact that they're locking rules in for our class for 3 years, you know, I think that really speaks to a lot of the other guys that maybe don't agree with some rules. But, you know, the fact that, okay, we're setting it for 3 years, so that maybe gives guys that were on the fence about building a new car. Now they're like, okay, we can run this car for 3 years. Let's go ahead and do it.
Right.
So I think our class is in a really good position now, moving forward. And I think with the announcement of this big buck, I'm not going to call. Well, I might call someone out, but you may see some bigger name guys that used to be in our class, maybe like a Peyton Taylor. That would be very cool to see him run our class again. Maybe just once a year, come run our class at the big buck.
Come run the big buck.
Yeah, you know, that'd be pretty cool. So I think it's going to be a really big deal for this class. I think we'll start to see our car counts at all tracks maybe start to increase.
It's always good racing. The super stocks, everywhere I've been and watched them, it's always good racing.
Yep. Yeah, you know, this first year, I think a lot of guys will have to temper expectations. You know that you know it ain't going to be exactly what it was the last year we had. I think last year we had 110, 115 cars in our class alone.
There was a lot.
So we probably won't be that the first year, maybe not even the first 2 years, but I think you'll start to see this class start maybe coming back to life. And not that we're dead in the water anyway. I mean, our class is strong. You know, I think we got close to 100 registered cars this year alone, so I think we're getting there.
That's good. So, was it 2018 or 2019 when you jumped in the street stock?
So 19 would have been when we sold the late model and jumped into the street stock full time. It was actually all the super stock cars that I have driven. They're all Shark chassis. That's what my brother-in-law builds. They've all been hand-me-downs. We run what Mark had run the previous years, so can't thank him enough for allowing us and giving us basically a free car to run every year. You know, that really helps a guy like me out. Who, you know, most of the stuff other than the sponsor help, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. So you know, having a car basically handed to you at the race, it's a huge weight lifted off your shoulders. Not having to burden that expense.
Right. So does that create any stressors on you with you guys? I mean, with you as a driver, is he just giving you the car, or are you driving his car?
It's I would say it's still his car. He'll tell me it's my car now. I've run it, you know, this will be the fourth season that I've run this car. But I think we've cemented that this is a pretty fast car. So
pretty good combination. I think the guy that sits in the seat sure makes it go pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean we all run Shark chassis in this shop. So I mean we all bounce ideas off each other. So I wouldn't say there's any tension in the shop, and it's all. We definitely have the fun-loving giving each other shit, in the shop every now and again, when one of us beats the other, it'll just be giving each other good razzing every week. But no, it's we all get along. We bounce ideas off. We share information, and then that makes everybody in our cars faster.
So 2020, did you make the decision to go run for national points, or did you just kind of end up in this points battle? How'd all that go starting out there, with the first title?
I think it was 2021 was the first title, and that was it was kind of up in the air. We didn't really know what was going to happen with the class under Powri. We were very thankful that Powri picked us up, and we were at the time the only full-bodied car that Powri had under their rules. Right? They didn't have the D mods yet, Midwest mods, no pure stocks. So I think we were kind of their guinea pig to see how this thing would take off.
Yeah, because they're just primarily sprint cars.
Yep.
So this was their first adaptation into anything with fenders.
Yep. So we looked at the structure of the rules. We kind of looked at our own schedule for what Warrensburg was going to run, because that's our home track. We thought we'll go the first few weeks and see how it works out. And halfway through the year, if it looks like maybe we're in contention for a national title, we'll continue to hit it hard the rest of the season. And so that 2021 year was at the time probably started out as one of my best seasons yet. I think I started with 5 or 6 feature wins at CMS, and so we were sitting. The way Powri works, they take your top 20 nights out of the whole season, they drop everything else off. So some of the other guys, already had close to 20 at the halfway point in the season, and I'm only sitting at 10 races total. And, but we had 5 wins. And so we got to looking at it, we're like, well, if we can get 10 more races in and do just as good as we've done the first half, we've got a shot at winning this thing. And so we hit it really hard there at the end of the year. My dad, by trade, is a golf coach. So he, at the end of most race seasons, his work life gets pretty busy and pretty hectic because they travel on the road a lot. So we got to the September-ish time frame, and I was kind of on my own, and that's when my buddy Phil Sullivan, who helps my brother-in-law Mark, he's his crew chief. He kind of stepped in and helped fill the void where my dad wasn't going to be able to go, and we hit the highway pretty hard. We traveled down to North Central Arkansas Speedway. We went all the way over to Old Number 1, which is in Harrisburg, Arkansas. I think that year Batesville was still running. We hit Batesville. I mean, we hit almost every Powri track trying to get as many good nights and knock off those, the DNFs, trying to knock those off. There were a couple nights we ran three nights a weekend. We were staying in hotels, and it ended up paying off. And it was very similar to this year, where it came down to the last night. We were running against our buddy Donnie Miller, who runs West Plains. He was, I think, 10 points behind me going into the last weekend, and we had to make the 6-hour trip down to Harrisburg because that was the only track running that weekend. So we hauled down there, and we had to finish. We just had to finish in front of him to be able to secure the championship. We ended up pulling it off. So that was easily my best, most successful season at that time, and it was a heck of a fun year. I'll always remember that year.
Well, then to follow it with 2 more national titles that's a big deal.
Yeah. So the following year, 2022, that year, I wouldn't have guessed in a million years that I would have had a better, more successful year than I had the previous year. I think 2021 we ended with 12 or 13 feature wins, the national title, and I think that year was the same year we won the CMS track championship. So I was like, man, it's all downhill from here. It's not going to get as good as that. And we went on an absolute tear in 2022. We ended up with 17 feature wins. So we almost got to a perfect 20 feature wins. But we had 17 feature wins. Didn't get the CMS track championship that year because we were bouncing around to a lot of other tracks. But we won the championship that year pretty handily. We got to, I think, 3 or 4 weeks left, and it was kind of smooth sailing. We just had to make sure we didn't finish, get good solid finishes, not tear our car up. But that was a fun season, definitely, because we hit victory lane quite a few times.
That's awesome. 17 wins and 12 wins in a season is a lot. I mean, it's that's a big deal.
Yep.
It's a lot of work and dedication.
Yep.
And the nights, running to another place, racing 3 nights a week, you got to get underneath the car and make sure it's all good to go for another night. And
Yep.
And doing it weekend after weekend to compete for a national title, that takes a lot of dedication.
Yep, it is, and I feel like we've really found our niche with this class, and with how much work we've got to put in. Like I said, me and my dad, we both work day jobs, so we don't get a ton of time to work on the car. But I feel like we've got still a really good work life race balance. Work during the day. I still get good family time. We've set it to where we only have Tuesday, Thursday as our shop nights, so that we still get some time at home with the wife and the kid to just kind of unwind.
Right.
But those Tuesday, Thursdays when we're out here, we make sure we are hitting it hard. We're getting our work done. That way, come either Friday or Saturday, we are locked in, ready to go. We don't have to scramble.
Right. Working on the car at the track.
Yeah. Which is one huge benefit to this year with Powri announcing making the quick change legal in our car. That is going to make the work for so many guys that travel to different tracks easier on Fridays and Saturdays. Not having to try to schedule, well, what parking lot am I going to hit to try to change the gear, jack the car up, it's do it at the track in 5 minutes, you're done.
Right. I've seen a lot of controversy back and forth about that, and I'm still pretty green, but I don't really see what the advantage or disadvantage is. If you can't afford a quick change, then run a 9-inch, and you just got to change the gear different. I don't think one's a great advantage to the other than the changing of the gear. Yeah,
I think there's some guys there's going to be two sides to every situation like that when we're talking about quick changes, because my camp's the same way you are. For us, the guys that travel, that run this point series and really support Powri, it makes our life so much easier. And that's a choice on me, and that's a choice on the other guys that do it. We're choosing to spend that money because it will make our lives easier. On the track, it is definitely not a performance advantage. I'd like anyone to give me a chassis dyno or a motor dyno with a quick change hooked up, tell me that it performs better than a 9-inch. It just does not.
and this may just be armchair stuff, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that the 9-inch is less rotating weight.
Oh yeah, less friction. You're robbing horsepower with a quick change. Not a ton, but it's definitely not a performance advantage on the track. But you get the tuning ability. I will agree with that. You get the tuning ability off the track, but I see both sides of it. There are guys that say, well, if we're changing to a quick change, well, I've heard the argument that, well, now our cars are becoming late models. Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I see their argument that why would we change something that's worked so well in the past? But racing has evolved since the very first day of racing. It's always going to evolve. It's never going to stop evolving, and so you either just got to get on the bandwagon and ride it, or find a different class. So soon enough, you'll see pure stocks are going to have quick changes because they're one of the last classes I think that probably don't have them. So
right.
It's only a matter of time before they have them, because at the end of the day, these are all race cars. They're not street cars.
And I think that there is exactly how racing goes.
Yep.
Somebody comes up with something that's fast,
Yep.
and they're going to get away with it for a race or two, and then a guy's going to figure it out,
Yep.
and they're going to start doing the same thing, and then the next year it's just on everybody's car.
Yep.
So, that's just kind of how it seems to me like that's the way racing technology goes.
Yeah, and I've heard that argument too, that these guys start buying these quick change rear ends, you know, and then, you know, start, you know, winning a bunch of races or anything like that. Now it's telling the other guys that don't have them, like, oh, well, I gotta buy a quick change now. It's that ain't the case. That the quick change is not what's making you win. That the quick change is a convenience thing.
Right.
It is not a performance advantage. You know, I've got my 9-inch. I've got. I hate to say this, but I've got a gear that I run the most out of a year, my 633. It's an $1,100 gear. I spent the money because I knew I'd run it all the time, and it's a third of the cost of a complete quick change. So, I mean, the cost comparison between the two, I think, is a moot point because, you know, I think they're going to equal out to be about the same when you're building a brand new car. You know, if you're buying three 9-inch gears versus 3 quick changes and then the full setup, you know, it's about the same.
Right.
I've heard guys saying, oh, well, the quick change, you're spending $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. It ain't that much. I've got one sitting right here that did not cost that much, and it's the best one you can buy.
Right. So at $5,000 or $6,000, I mean, that's about buy a car.
Yeah, that's a late model quick change. That ain't a stock car quick change. So
then you back it up.
2024. What are your plans for 2024? I have some people asking.
So we're still planning on doing the same thing. You know, I talked with the wife. Near the end of the year, we kept telling ourselves that if we happen to pull this year's championship off the 2023 season, that we were probably going to tone it back a little bit. Because this past year was the first year that we had trailed in the points going into the last night, and it was win or go home basically
On the last night.
And when we ended up winning, for me, that got the blood flowing again. You know, we got in the truck, headed home from Lake Ozark that night, and I just turned to my dad and Jess and I said, "We gonna do it again next year?" And so we haven't really determined yet whether or not we're gonna really chase it hard, but I would definitely like to. We've had so much success. Why stop now?
Right.
And I feel like like I said earlier, we found that balance to where we're not really running ourselves into the ground too hard, but we've kind of found that perfect balance.
Had you run on Lake Ozark before?
Oh yeah, we had run back there back before Kenny owned the track when we were running modifieds when it first opened up. It's a fun little track. Kind of reminiscent to me, configuration-wise, of Lamont, maybe a little smaller. Did you ever run Lamont?
No.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite tracks. We had a lot of success with that one when we were modified. But
We went to Lake Ozark this year. Well, we pitted there by you the second day.
Yep.
And I got to take the green, but we had car issues, so
Yeah.
we took the green and kind of went to the other end of the straightaway and went on into the infield. So we kept trying and didn't get it figured out in time, but that's racing, I guess.
Yep, you're always gonna have those nights.
So 2024, you're gonna pull it back a little bit, you think?
Yeah, we maybe not do as much traveling, but I think we're gonna try to run points and see how we do. We're lucky enough that we have a Powri track literally 2 miles from our shop where we're sitting right now. So I think they schedule maybe 16 nights a year, so that gets us majority of the way to our 20. So as long as we can have another good season on our home track like we normally do, you know, and then hit 5 to 10 other tracks throughout the year on a Friday, I think that's probably what we'll try to do. Definitely probably won't try to do the 3 nights a week again. That can be a toll. But we'll definitely try to run production.
That's awesome. I look forward to watching. So what?
Springfield. I have somebody that asked if he was going to go to Springfield on March 30th.
On March 30th, I think they're putting on a super stock race down there.
Yep. So the car doesn't look like it's ready, but it will be ready. We've got all the body out in the trailer. It's ready to bolt on. We just got to swap the rear ends, and then we're waiting for our motor to get back from the motor builder. So hopefully it'll be back sometime in February-ish, and after we'll have everything sitting there ready to go, and just throw it in and start racing. So yes, our plan is to hit that race, and then there's another race they're trying to have early in the year somewhere. I can't remember. But yeah, we're definitely gonna try to hit Springfield.
I think there is another big super stock race somewhere.
Early in the year, I
I
think.
think so. I think the
Screaming Lehman.
Lehman's later in the year, I think.
It might be it.
And that was a big race to win in 23 here last year.
Yep, it was.
That was a hell of a race. I mean, you had all the competition stacked against you that night. There wasn't nobody lacking in the field.
Yep. It just hadn't worked out the previous, I think, 3 or 4 years they had run it. I really wanted to go down. Chris Kircher had hit me up every year, hey, are you going to be able to come? And we really wanted to those years. It just didn't work out timing-wise to be able to go down there. So this year I really made it a priority to get down there this year. And I knew going into it, it was going to be a stout field. We had Derek Henson, Derek Brown was down there, all their local guys. Dowdy was there with his new car, and we didn't have a horrible heat race, but we didn't have a great heat race either. So we kind of struggled a little bit, started a little bit deeper than we would have liked in the feature, and then. Derek got out to the lead there, and he kind of started setting sail on us. And I was like, man, it's going to be tough. I'm going to have to get some help with some yellows. And luckily enough, we got a few. Made sure to keep my tires warm. So it was a little cooler that night, if I remember. And there was just enough moisture on the top side to make it stick in 3 and 4. And that was my only shot, because 1 and 2, as you can tell on the video, it was super slick. And I had to be hugged right against his right side door to be able to get anything to stick in that corner, and I was making it work up top in 3 and 4. So it was definitely a fun race, and I think we had 3 or 4 races together this year where me and Derek were just battling,
Neck and neck.
So hats off to him. We had some good, fun, clean racing all year long. We'd always good one to run against. So yeah, that was probably one of my biggest races at the time to win, 2,500 to win. And then, of course, following up with the Powri Nationals later that year.
That was a big deal.
That was emotionally, and for me personally, was easily my biggest win, just for how much was at stake at the time. Not only the 3,000 national championship race, but also winning the national points championship.
Well, I think that top tier of you super stock guys is super competitive.
Oh yeah.
And the cars are so close together that it makes for great racing.
Oh, it does. It does. It's you look at Lucas Oil late models, USMTS, any big sanction that's got really heavy talent, you're always going to have rivals and lack of a better term, drama between some drivers. With our class, man, it's a family. It doesn't matter if you're battling on the track hard, racing hard, rubbing. Me and Derek at that national championship, we got together, I think 3 or 4 different times. After the race, once we got the helmets off, man, we're friends. We're all family. I think that's the one thing that after that first year in Powri really cemented it for me that this was the class I was going to stay in. Because everybody's just family in our class. You might have a scuffle on the track here and there, but it doesn't last. Next week we show up to the track, everything's brushed off, and everything's good.
I'd like to think that what rivalries there are among them guys don't create drama. It doesn't seem like you guys leave it out there. Once you cross the stripe, it's over.
Yep, we let our racing do the talking. After we get off the track, at that point it doesn't matter. The race is over, so why worry about it? Why argue about it? So.
Right.
Get your car ready for the next week and go prove them wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you could pick one out, one race. What's your favorite race?
That I've raced in?
That you raced. One or not one? I know it's weird. Some guys have races that their favorite race isn't one they won.
I would say personally, it's hard to beat that national championship race this year. Just for, like I said, how much was at stake. It would be either between that one or my first win in a modified. That one was hard to beat.
Where was that at?
So that was at Lamont. We were running our Dirtworks modified. Gary Clark built those. We were actually doing things a little bit different than what Gary had originally set us up for. We were actually running a fifth arm, like a late model, and me and Bodenhammer were the only ones running those. We were kind of in the same camp at the time, and that was my second year in the car. First car as a 4-bar car, so I was still kind of learning the ropes, tuning those and adjusting them, getting them to work for me. And I think we had a really good heat race. We might have won our heat race and started on like the front or second row. And this was back when you had Jason Thompson, Dean Willie, Dustin, Justin Boney. I mean, we had some heavy hitters at that track running weekly. And my nerves got to me on the first lap, went into 1 and 2, and I think I ended up looping it on my own. And so had to go all the way to back. And that track was known for being the most consistent track you could imagine. 1 lane of grip on the bottom for your left side, slick from top to bottom, and maybe half a car's worth of moisture on the top. And so I went to the back, and this was back when we were getting 24 cars in every class. So I started 24th, and in 10 laps, I was working on the leader. And I was making that car work everywhere. I was running the top, ripping the lip, passing cars, and then I'd have to work to the bottom. And I think I ended up having to pass Jason Thompson that night, and that's probably a tough one to beat, just getting your first feature win in a big car under your belt. And against those guys, I mean, those guys were some of the big names that could win US MTS races.
Right. That's hard not to celebrate just passing some of them guys.
Yeah. So ended up going on to win that one, and I think that year that was probably my best year in a modified ever. We won like 3 or 4 features at Lamont. And so, as a young kid, 17, 18 years old, that's a good year. That's a good year running against that talent. Ran 7 more years without a feature win. So, those were big ones. And then once we got into these cars, getting that first win in these, and getting that confidence built, that's really what set us up for success.
Well, I mean, to jump into one to go try it out,
Mm-hmm.
and be the first guy across the stripe.
Yep.
That's kind of a big deal. Like you said earlier, that kind of signaled, here we come.
Yep.
I think we're going to dive into this and go for it.
Yep.
So I know you're real close to Warrensburg, and you primarily run Warrensburg. That's your home track. What do you think's your favorite track you've run on?
2 come to mind, and 2 completely different tracks from each other. One would be Springfield. I love Springfield. For some reason, that configuration for as small as the track is and how fast and how much speed you guys can keep at that track, and that's probably one of my favorites. Of course, Warrensburg's close to my heart, just because it's my home track. I'm always going to love that track. Thanks to Earl and Sam and all the people that work there that help that track go, because it's nice having a track 2 miles from your shop.
Yeah, they do a great job. They've done a great job with that track for a long time, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
I would say another one that we don't get to run anymore, I think I only got to run it twice, would be Moberly. That track is bad fast. And we got to race there back when we were in modifieds. And that was my first experience in a car never lifting.
That's a big old wide track, isn't it?
High banked, half mile, and put it to the wood and don't let your foot up or else you're going to the back. I mean, it was super fast, unlike any track I've ever been on. They used to run our class there, and I think they kind of hit and miss with our class sometimes. They mix us in with the USRA guys. I'd love to get back there sometime with these cars, because I think these cars would be super fast on that track.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun up there.
Yep.
Well, is there anybody you want to maybe thank?
Advice.
I've got a ton of sponsors. Trying to visualize my car. Gray Hair Racing, Stub Morris, he helps me out. He's just a good friend. And then Bruce Farms, that's my in-laws. They help us out. Dirt track specialist down in Nevada, Brian Larimore. He has single-handedly turned our program into what it is today. And that's no knock on anyone else who's helped us, but he has turned our program into the success that it is now. We had wins without him before that, but he's the reason we got those seasons where we had 12, 17, and then 14 wins and 3 national titles. So thanks to him. B&G Scoops out of Knob, Spees Enterprises out of Warrensburg, Solar Pro Tent and Tunes out of Warrensburg, Elite Realty out of Warrensburg, All-Star Bail Bonds, which is Bob Larson out of Warrensburg, Elite Auto Repair, which is my brother-in-law Mark Carter's shop, auto repair shop in town, Joe Good State Farm, Superior Steering Wheels, Stay True Tattoos out of Sedalia, Central Bank of Warrensburg. Then we got some new sponsors on the car this year: Robert Kircher Racing, or Robert Kircher Motorsports, Automotive.com. One of my friends that I went to high school with, he started up a new business. He's jumped on board with us this year. My grandmother, Mima Toma, she's been a helper and a sponsor for us since the day we got into go-karts. She's always been there to help us out. Can't thank her enough. Harriet Chancellor, who, if it weren't for Harriet, we wouldn't be sitting here talking right now. We would have never gotten back into racing. It wasn't even a thought on my mind at the time until I got that call. So I was very grateful for her giving us that opportunity to race Cowboys car. That year will always hold a special year in my heart. Getting to represent Cowboy. He was a pillar in racing community. So we lost a good one when he passed away. So getting to represent him was huge.
That's an awesome honor.
Yep.
I mean, that's a big deal.
Yep.
That's it. It's amazing the way racing impacts people on on a passionate level. Never mind the sport. I mean, just a from the heart kind of deal like that. That's a big deal. I like that stuff.
Yeah, we got some others. Turnbow Livestock. They're out of Warrensburg. Another buddy I went to high school with. I think Triple R Motors out of Quincy provide us a very reliable power plant. The only issues we've ever had with their motors were self-inflicted. We had an issue where punctured an oil filter and ran the motor out of oil. An issue where ran one out of water one night because of a hole through the radiator. But we have never. There's no wood around me right now, but I'd knock on some wood if I had it. We've never had an issue that was because of workmanship or anything.
That wasn't operator error.
Yes, so that can't thank Triple R enough. And this year, we had a night where that night we got a hole in our oil filter, ran it out of oil, and we're in a battle for a points championship. We don't have a spare back. We don't have a backup motor.
Right.
We got the motor out of it, took it up there on like a Wednesday or Thursday, and they had it back to us the next week. And they had to completely tear it down, put a new crank, put new rods. So they did us a heck of a favor getting that thing turned around to be able to go back next week and at least battle. They gave us an opportunity to battle. If we would have had a couple weeks where we had to miss, we probably wouldn't have won a third in a row. And then on that same note, my buddy Mike Daughtry, he helped me. The weekend that we did miss, he gave me his car to run so that I didn't miss a night worth of points. And we actually, surprising to both of us, we had a car to win, and it was operator error that caused us not to win. So can't thank him enough. Mom and Dad, of course, they've helped me every year in racing, and my dad especially. He's out here every Tuesday, Thursday. He could have easily decided to buy himself a car, and he actually did have a street stock before I had my go-kart. He was going to race it, and the year before we bought my go-kart, He never even ever told me. And so the fact that he gave me the opportunity instead of himself, I can't thank him enough, because it could have been me being the crew chief. And I would have loved it all the same,
Right.
just being in racing. But having him by my side, making the memories, learning together, and having the success together that we had, it's I can't thank him enough.
Can't beat it.
Yeah.
You can't beat it.
Yeah, and of course my wife Jessica, Bruce, and daughter Lennon. She's the soon-to-be crew chief. So I'm sure you'll see her telling me what to do, what to change. Here before too long. Once she gets a little finger pointing at me. So can't thank them enough for allowing me to do what I do, and the time that I give up, with them on Tuesdays and Thursdays and the weekend, and then supporting me. They show up every weekend to the track with a smile on their face, supporting me where a lot of guys don't get that from their spouses. So
Right.
can't thank them enough. I think that's it. And, you see all these other guys that help me out throughout the year.
Let's get a hard one. Let's get a hard question.
Okay.
So, let's say I want to go run for a national title in the super stock class for the next 3 years in a row.
Yep.
Pick a thing out.
Yeah.
What's the number one thing a guy's got to do? What's the number one thing, if you don't mind indulging,
Yeah.
that you got to do to what?
I'll take and John Brooks uses this all the time. I'll take a page out of Hot Carl's notebook. Watch your own body. A lot of guys get caught up in what other guys are doing to be successful. And to a certain point, some guys do some stuff where, hey, maybe we should start thinking about doing something a little different than what we currently do. Maybe get us up front. But for the most part, focus on your own stuff. Don't be sitting there saying, "Oh, well, he's winning all the time, so he's cheating," or maybe they are. Don't worry about it. Find a way to get your stuff faster. Find a way to work on yourself as a driver. Work on your car, make it faster. Do your maintenance, and just do the work. A lot of guys say that they stay away from this class because of the tires. I stay in this class because of the tires. It's two different sides of the story, because it's a heck of a lot of work to sit there and groove and grind and sight those tires because they're asphalt takeoff. I love that, because I know what I'm putting on my car. I get to do things my own way. I'm not taking a spec tire and just mounting it up and going and running. I get to do my own thing, and I know that what I do works, and it's literally just doing the work. You put the work in at the shop every weekend and focus on your stuff and get it faster, and you're going to go to the front. It's when you start talking about all this, I'm never going to win because these guys are cheating, and if you've got that mentality, you're never going to put the amount of work needed into your own car, because you've given up. You're in your own head, and you're never going to go anywhere.
Right.
You just got to focus on your own stuff. It's, when we raced modifieds, I would say I was probably in the camp that, we were racing against a lot of guys that maybe got caught cheating a few times, got DQ'd a few times, and we would, well, they're cheating. There's nothing we can do. We're trying to run our cars as legal as can be and stuff. And, you get to that point, our success, this portion of our career shows. When we were in modified, we maybe were a little on that side where we didn't focus on our stuff as much as we did work. We did the work. We made sure we showed up every week with a car that was as good as it can be and ready to go. But, we weren't focusing, or myself wasn't focusing on my stuff as much as I was focusing on others.
You hear a lot of horror stories about that,
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting ready for the feature. Oh, well, look over there, they're changing this. We better change something.
Yeah.
And you forget,
Yep.
to ask yourself, well, how'd the car feel
Yep.
when you came off the track? Do
Yep.
you really need to make that change?
Yep. when we jumped into the late models, it was really a fresh start because we were starting from scratch, and I was 4 years out of date on technology, on how cars are driven now. They're driven way different than what they were when I was running modifieds, and so it was really a fresh start of relearning a late model 4-link suspension, focusing on what I needed to do to know how to tune a late model, and then that all kind of bled over into these cars. And I've always been one that I don't like doing a ton of changes on a car on a track. I like getting a very good base setup in my car that can go anywhere, any track,
And know what it's going to be.
half mile to quarter mile, slick to heavy, and not have to make a ton of changes, and just have a consistent race car. And I felt like that, when we were in the late models, set that foundation for the super stocks of getting into that habit of having our car ready before the weekend, tuned for where we were going, and it just it was a snowball effect. Really focusing on what we were doing, and we'd have moments at the track where, well, the track's doing this guy may be changing this, and I finally got into the habit of just telling myself, car was fast in the heat race, we don't need to change, and really just staying in our own lane. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you what advice you might have for a new guy.
A
But
new guy?
I can tell you what his answer is going to be. It's going to be similar to what he just said. Work on your stuff.
Yeah. I mean, being new in the racing, it's a little different because you do have to ask the questions. You do have to say, hey, what are you guys doing here versus what I'm doing to learn. But it's all, it's all in moderation. You still, the one thing I've always harped on with, jumping into several different cars in a year, trying different things, it's, you got to get comfortable in the car, not make the car comfortable for you. The car is what it is. It's a machine. You got to get comfortable in it.
You've got to go put laps on
Yeah.
it and feel good about what you have.
Yep, exactly. And a lot of guys just sit there and tune, trying to make the car comfortable to them. Whereas it is what it is. I mean, it's John Brooks always says it's just a hunk of steel going around a track, with a couple springs and a motor. Yeah, it's dumbing it down, but it is what it is. I mean, you just got to get comfortable in it. And sometimes when track conditions change at a track, you gotta adjust as a driver, not adjust the car.
Right.
You got to change your driving style a little bit. As a new driver, just seat time, man. Seat time. That's the only way you're going to get better on the track is seat time.
Make sure your nuts and
Yep.
bolts are tight. That way, when opportunity knocks, you're ready to answer the door.
Yep. And ask questions. A lot of guys just try to see and look and emulate what guys are doing instead of like going up to someone and just asking. Whether it's how to tune on a car or how your driving style. What you're doing inside the car. How to groove or sipe or what you're doing on your tire. Ask those questions. Go up to someone that is successful and say, hey, I'm learning. Tell me what you're doing. And some guys are maybe going to be a little standoffish, because they're trying to maybe hide their stuff. I've never been that way.
I think it's transformed a lot. Years ago, when I wasn't racing around Adrian, there wasn't a lot of shared information. There might have been, you and this guy might be sharing information, but
yeah,
them guys over there need to stay over there.
Oh yeah.
Kind of thing. And I feel like from being around it then, around 2000 to now, that's transformed a lot. You got a lot of guys helping each other out.
Yep.
A lot of guys are willing to help these guys out. If you got questions, ask them.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I've always been very open, especially since this second half of our career. If guys have questions or they want to know something about how I set something up, I'm very open. I would allow anyone to come just take a tape measure of our car, look at my car, or do whatever they wanted to see what we were doing, because I have nothing to hide.
Right.
And what works for me might not work for some other guy.
Right.
So
But
I
if
have nothing to hide.
But also too, if it makes you at your best and I can still outrun you, then
Yep.
then I'm helping you get better, and you're helping me get better.
Yep.
I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Is to be the fastest around the track. And
Yep.
you can't be the fastest around the track without them guys chasing you.
Yep.
So, well, man, I really appreciate you taking the time. Crazy guy's gonna go to the Chiefs game later.
Oh yeah, freeze my butt off.
I'd say we're gonna see a lot of snow people, in their clothes hanging out in the stands. So.
Oh yeah, I've got 4 layers ready to go.
Something that cracked me up about the Chiefs game is I seen, and I don't know if this is true or not, it's Facebook talk, you know how that is.
Oh yeah.
So the seats are going for so cheap because it's cold. And there was a person on there, they said that, Miami fans are buying up the seats so the stadium would be half empty so it won't be as loud.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that last time we tried to break the record, I think the stadium was sold out.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't break it.
Yep.
And then at the end of the game, after half the people had left, they broke the record.
Yep. I was there for that game.
Buy them seats up, Miami fans.
Yep.
Buy them up.
Yep.
Buy them up. Man, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
3-time champ. This has been a good time. I didn't know a lot about you. I'm glad I got to know a lot about you. I can't wait for 24.
Yep.
Give them hell, man.
Appreciate you guys coming.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep.
Peace, everybody.